Hey folks, this is Bailey from Dank Wargaming.
Hey, this is Heath with Team Table War Hawaii.
And welcome to the Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast. Our aim is to provide Dark Angels players with the tactical and hobby skills that they need to compete and enjoy this wonderful hobby of ours. On this month's episode of the podcast, we're going to be looking at the new Horus Heresy book, Luther the First Fallen, as well as the new FAQ and new releases. In the Metawatch section, actually we have a new name for it, which Heath knows, and my inability with linguistics prevents me from pronouncing, but we're going to take a look. At the end of the day, what we're going to get to is we're going to be talking about the Druhkari, because they just came out, and we want to look at how we match up with them. Then in today's featured segment, we're going to talk about Successor Tactics, for the Successor Chapters from the core Space Marine book and how that interacts with some of the Dark Angels stuff that we have, for when you want to try something a little bit different. And then finally we have a quick wrap up with the community interaction section, as well as our monthly challenge. So you don't want to miss out. I want to see what next month's challenge is and see if Heath and I got through last month's challenge, which, if I remember correctly, Heath, we just had to play a game with Successor Chapters.
That is correct.
We didn't have to paint anything. We just had to play.
No, that is correct.
All right. Well,
let's pop into it.
In our new releases, all right, we got this book, Luther, First of the Fallen by Gav Thorpe. It comes out Tuesday, according to Amazon, and Kindle version is $17.99, and they've got a 50% discount right now if you're pre-ordering. So it's normally supposed to be $18, but now it's like $15.29 for the hardcover. And the cover is pretty sweet. It's got Luther on there with his sword down to the ground, but it's got some reds. It's very dark. It's got some red lighting. It's got these twisty, viney things going on around him, so you can tell that he's supposed to be a Dark Angel, but there's the chaos. You can see chaos kind of creeping in on him on the cover. It's pretty cool. And then so the main thing for us.
Yeah.
And then I think it looks pretty neat. I'm excited to hear about that, especially since we know from the new codex that Luther has escaped from his little obulette inside of the rock, and one of the big things for the Dark Angels right now. So you mentioned before we hopped on here that you have the new Book of Rust, and they're doing the new war zones for this edition like they did for Vigilus and such in the previous one. So it sounds like they're building up for something like that for Dark Angels based on what's in the book, that they're going to go into.
I would hope so, yeah.
I remember off the top of my head. But they're going to go somewhere to try and find Luther, which means that there's probably going to be a Chaos release around there, and there's going to be some rules for the Fallen probably in there with Luther. Hopefully a mini, maybe. That would be pretty cool. What does it look like to be a guy that's been tortured inside the rock for 10,000 years and warped and twisted by Chaos?
And even before that, he was, according to the lore, he was the equal of the Lion. He's effectively a Chaos Primarch. No one's really the equal of the Lion. Just saying, but he's no slouch, and it would be an interesting move. I could hear the tears right now. Instead of a proper Chaos Primarch, they released Luther. Some part of me just wants to see the world burn and would be completely entertained by that, but whatever.
Well, the galaxy burns. It's written in the rule book. The galaxy burns.
Indeed.
All right, and then sort of on a rules side, the FAQ dropped, and I know a couple of us were holding our breath about a few things, but it was actually sort of underwhelming in a way. It really wasn't. There wasn't any sort of major, no, my army, it's ruined, as some people felt in 8th edition, when you couldn't deep strike your Mortarion or your Magnus anymore with the Demons Codex, when they said, no, we didn't mean every Chaos Demon, we just meant the ones in this codex.
We meant faction keywords, not keywords. No. Yes. Yeah, this change is, it's good, in that the apothecary bubbles for the Deathwing and the Ravenwing apothecaries are brought in line with the rest of the apothecaries, so now they're 3 inches instead of 6 inches. Which is fair. The 6-inch apothecary bubble was pretty strong, and the codex has a lot of other really, really strong stuff in it. So I'm not upset by that at all. It is going to change a couple of lists, but if you're planning on using 2 apothecaries to provide 30 Terminators with a 6-up Feel No Pain, you might need to rejigger. I don't know if you need to rejigger your list, but you may need to rejigger your deployment tactics and your formation tactics. But it's yeah, fair enough. No worries. Other change was that the hunt, which is the pre-game move stratagem for the Ravenwing, is now once per game, which is
yes.
I guess it's good they clarified it. I guess it was technically possible to do it more than once per game, but paying 2 CP for 5 or less, or 3 CP for more than 5 bikes to make a pre-game move would have been prohibitively expensive, even if you were like Dark Angels have so many things to spend command points on in the game that I don't really see the benefit of doing that more than once. Like saying I'm going to blow 6 CP before the game begins to move 10 Ravenwing or 2 squads of big squads of Ravenwing bikers up into the middle of the board. Like, I don't see the return on that, so I'm not upset by that change at all. So definitely fair.
Right. I agree with that. And then they put the aura keyword on the Feast of Malediction for the Cup of Retribution, so that way if you do use that once a game ability and somebody has the ability to turn off auras, you can stop that from happening. So that that's kind like I understand because they're trying to clarify that like all these are auras, but when it's a once per game thing and someone goes, oh yeah, by the way, that once a game thing that you spend a relic slot on, you don't get to do it.
Well, I mean,
again, that's not really gonna. It's not gonna happen that often. I don't think
things that exist outside of the normal game rule structure. If something is an aura effect but doesn't have the aura, then it just gets into a weird place. Like I remember in 8th edition, there was an argument for using the Angel's Ambit, which was the Phoenix Rising. God dang it, not the Phoenix Rising. The Psychic Awakening ritual that damned. We had a relic that would give 3 inches additional range to all our abilities, but our abilities weren't defined. It was just anything that. So, if I took a Phobos Captain with his 12-inch anti-deep strike aura, and I can make it a 15-inch anti-deep strike aura, you just do the math on it, and that in 15 inches from one guy with a 32-inch base is it's
crazy.
It's enormous. It's huge. So yeah, defining things like in the context of the existing rule set is definitely desirable. It's gonna prevent some janky interaction 3 codexes from now from breaking it. So
correct. And then I guess the last 2 points are they added the Repulsor Executioner because that's a separate keyword from Repulsor in the Rites of Initiation, so you can now throw a Repulsor Executioner into your Vanguard with all of your Terminators who have OBSEC. And then the final thing is that the Paragon of the Chapter stratagem does allow you to take 2 Warlord, or does allow you to take the Ravenwing and Deathwing Warlord traits.
I think we all knew that. Yeah. I don't know if anyone was saying that it didn't. Once again, tighter wording. I'm never gonna be complain about that. So, all right.
Yeah. No. So that helps, and just clarifies things.
Yep.
So
Inner
that
circle
being said,
stays unchanged. Inner circle stays unchanged.
Yes,
how
that was
they
the big
want it
thing.
to work. That's like no, there's no way. Like no, that is how they want it to work. That is what it is.
And Jink.
Just get over it.
And that all those units get it.
Yes. Yes, that is how it is intended to work. So,
well, and that's where I think some of the getting over it is coming into our next section, which I hope you can introduce because I would fail horribly at it, Heath.
All right,
but I think some of the get over it's coming in.
So, okay, so we'll still do a Metawatch eventually on a recurring basis. Once again, we're still living in the COVID times, so there's not a huge amount of meta to watch. But I mean, we are hearing that there are majors and super majors planned right now, so that's cool. But one of the things that we plan on doing when we started the show is that as new codexes come out, then one of the things we can focus on is ways that the Dark Angels specifically can plan on dealing with or handling or answering those threats. And that fits in nicely with a piece of the lore that the Dark Angels have. It's like traditionally back in the days of the Heresy in the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels being the first legion preceded all of the normal chapter and legion organizational structures. So because they were broken into a whole lot of different structures. And the reason for that is, well, just kind of their nature. The Dark Angels are very secretive. So everyone's pretty aware that the Dark Angels back in the Heresy were organized primarily into 6 wings, right? They called them the 6 wings, the Hexagrammaton, because each of the 6 wings represented one major modality of warfare, right? Because we couldn't call the White Scars to do our cavalry operations. We couldn't call the Iron Warriors to go break fortresses. We had to do all that stuff in-house because those other legions didn't exist yet. So that's where we get the 6 wings. But in addition to that, inside of the 6 wings, the chapter command at the time, and once again, this is all actually prior to the Lion being found, they decided that because they started running into all these really weird esoteric threats while we were clearing out the solar system, clearing out the Oort cloud, and then prior to going on and going back to going out into the first steps of the Great Crusade, all this knowledge that they had gained about how to fight very specific either Xenos threats or psychic threats, things along those lines, they encapsulated it and they made sure that it was carried down and retained in small cell structures. So what that was called was the Secret Orders of the Hekatonystika. So that a secret order was, if you were a member of, then you would basically have some piece of the chapter's lore and very specific tactics about how to combat one very particular threat. And this plays very strongly in the Primarch's book, Lionel Johnson. So the Dark Angels run into a threat, a Xenos threat called the Crave, that we had never heard of before, and they're like, "Well, oh hey, it's the Crave. Okay, call up the secret orders of the Santales, which specializes in the lore and the mystics of how to beat the Crave." So 8 Dark Angels get the call. They just get an email one day and like, "Oh, I guess I got to go do my thing that I can't talk about with anybody else." And they show up and they're all wearing the robes and this and there, and like, "All right, well, we found this thing." And they all, start talking about the stuff that they had been trained, and all of a sudden, any battlefield commander from the Legion can say, "This is what I'm facing. I need this," and all the members of under his command that have the knowledge of those things will just show up and all of a sudden provide, a intelligent, very experienced command cadre. Hey, here's what you're looking at, and here's what you need to worry about. So,
that's
to keep
cool.
along with that theme. Every time we run into a new codex, or every time we run into a new faction, or we're going to talk specifically about how the Dark Angels are going to face one particular threat, we're going to open up the Orders of the Hekatonystika. And today, it is the Trukin from Codex Druhkari.
Yep, I mooshed mine from my roommate.
So I do Moonlight as a Dark Eldar player. I've been playing Dark Eldar for half as long as I've been playing Dark Angels. So Dark Angels were my primary army, or my first love. But I started playing Dark Eldar back in 2010 when the new, actually just before the new Codex came out, or the new model line was released, because I had a feeling that they were going to get released soon. And I've always been kind of intrigued by the way the army played and how fast it was, and all these other interesting things. Plus, it was like no one else did it right at the time. No one else played Dark Eldar.
If I remember from that time period, it was all made to order online, direct from Games Workshop. If you didn't know someone that had them, that you could just pick them up secondhand, like you had to order everything. That's like how Sisters used to be. Like it was all made to order directly through them. Yeah, it was awful. Just expensive and crazy, just crazy.
So I got a big load of them up off eBay, and with all the old spiky boats and all the old spiky little dudes.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, when the new stuff comes out, I've already got my stuff. I've already got the tactics worked out. And I played with the 3rd edition Codex in 5th edition for several months, almost a year. And then when the new models came out, I was just like, what? These are amazing. They're so beautiful. They're so cool. Yeah. So I had to buy the whole army all over again. So, but I still had that old army, the big portions, that old 3rd edition army for a long time. I actually donated it back in, I think it was 2018, when those huge wildfires in California completely destroyed a city in Northern California. And there's a bunch of gamers up there, and I donated my old Dark Eldar army to one of the players there who's a Dark Eldar player. So yeah, the independent characters did a big spot on it. Really great piece of community outreach for that. But so that's my. I have some credentials as a know what I'm talking about with the Druhkari. They were my primary competitive army in 8th edition. I went and I played with them at Nova, and did all right for myself. So I'm interested in this new codex. It is good. Now it's different in a lot of ways, but it is good. It's a big shift in a lot of the ways that the Dark Eldar traditionally worked. So, yeah.
All right. So what do you got to tell me since you're the guy with the secrets? What am I looking for here? What are we looking for as a community, as Dark Angels players?
Okay, so here's the thing. So the Dark Eldar primarily are defined by a couple of attributes. One is speed, right? So not just like their ability to reposition on the battlefield, it's threat range. So the threat range of the Dark Eldar units is really, really high. And when you compare that or add that in and look at it in the context of the smaller board sizes that we have in 9th edition, a Dark Eldar combat unit in a Raider has an effective threat range of something like 70 to 80% of the table, which is real scary when you consider that what Dark Eldar combat units do in hand-to-hand combat. So I was actually able to get a game in against the Dark Eldar this month. I didn't get all the way through it as usual with COVID. Like Tabletop Simulator does Tabletop Simulator things, but I was able to learn a couple of lessons that I am eager to pass on. So, all right. So here's the thing. One, the speed. So, it has always kind of been a meme in the Eldar community that Games Workshop wants everyone to think that Dark Eldar play is witches and raiders, and that's the way Dark Eldar play, and it's just never been true. It was just never good. Because the raiders got shut down and the witches got shot to death. In 9th edition, witches and raiders are a thing. It is 100% a thing. It is terrifying. And it really has to stem from the changes in the terrain rules. So the thing is, you can't see the damn raiders. Right? If your opponent shows up on the table with 3 or 4 raiders on turn 1, they're going to be hidden behind terrain. And you're not going to be able to see them. Turn 2, they're going to move somewhere from 14 to 22 inches.
All right, that's
pretty
big.
They have a base move of 14. They fly, so they just jump right over stuff. They have a built-in 5-up invul save. You can give them a -1 to hit with a stratagem that's cheap now. It's only 1 CP instead of 2 because it can't be stacked with other things because the base 9th edition rules. And for 1 CP, they have a stratagem called Advanced Ether Sails that'll let any Raider or Ravager hull auto-advance 8 inches. So that's 22 inches.
Oh, wow.
Now, they can't disembark, but it will let them terrain hop. They'll jump from their safe deployment position, because they didn't know if they were going first or second, up to the middle of the board, right? And it will probably do it next to a terrain feature. So, one, you're going to have a hard time getting your guns pointed in that direction, because you're going to have to clear around some angles. And 2, if it does get shot down, all their little dudes and dudettes, their little murder boner dudes, just jump out into the terrain where they're safe and they can't get shot at, right? Or at least they get a save, right? And then if they don't get shot out, then when they disembark 3 inches. All Dark Eldar have a base movement of 7. Witches have a base movement of 8, potentially even 10 if they get their combat drug for 2. So now we're talking about 11 inches that they can jump out if there's a unit of witches. And then they can advance for D6 more inches, and on turn 2, every single Dark Eldar unit can advance and charge. Every single one. Right, is part of their power from pain. So the threat range out of a Raider is something on the order of like 30 inches for a unit of witches. So if I move, I jump out 11, I advance another force, that's 15. So it's like in the mid-20s, but on turn 2, if they can move those raiders up and get them into the middle of the board, then they're within a very credible threat range of whatever you're trying to get to the middle of the board to contest objectives. So, and then this isn't just going to be one raider doing this. There's going to be 3 of them, maybe 4, right? And they're going to push to hold all the objectives. So which brings me to my next point, which is the Dark Eldar's ability to contest objectives is second to none. It's really, really good. So their ability to get the objectives,
your deployment zone one with movement like that, they're gonna when you mean every single one, they mean everything. It's
in play. It's in play. And I've got some ideas about how we can try and play against this, but trying to push into the midboard against a Dark Eldar player is going to be really difficult, because if you overextend or if you don't support yourself correctly, then they're going to jump right on top of whatever the most isolated unit is, and it's going to die, right? So there is a possibility that you could just kind of plan for that and say, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice this guy to get those troops out of the raiders. And that's one of the key thing here is to beat Dark Eldar, you have to get their troops out of the raiders, and you have to shoot their troops down. You have to kill the witches, and you have to kill the Cabalites, and you have to kill the Racks, and you can't do it when they're inside of those raiders. So you may have to sacrifice a unit to do it. You may have to throw a speed bump out. Space Marines don't have a whole lot of speed bump units, but it's tough. So. And I initially went into this game and kind of looked at the codex thinking, okay, the Dark Angels are well suited for this because of our stratagem line Unbreakable, which basically says that, it's designed to work against horde armies, right? So a big squad of witches jumps on me, right? And they just kind of all throw their attacks in. I'm like, cool, 1 CP, only the first rank gets to fight me. Well, here's the deal. It still doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I tried this, and... So witches have something like 4 attacks each on the charge. Let me jump this out. So there's and the individual combat power of each of the squad of witches can vary significantly based on combat drugs. And one of the things that the witches have the ability to do is they can pre-select their combat drugs and write them on their data sheet, and they can pick one from the table. Or at the beginning of the game, they can randomly determine 2 combat drugs from that table. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of people randomly determining 2 combat drugs for every witch unit, because none of them are bad. They're all really good. And they can all kind of and if you have 2 to 3 units of witches and a unit of blood brides, which are the upgraded super witches, then they can it gives you a lot of flexibility with their options. And they also have a stratagem that lets them I don't know if it's 1 or 2 CP, they can double the effectiveness of all their combat drugs. So you can end up with a single unit of witches, which are normally strength 3, toughness 3, ending up with +1 attack on the charge, strength 5 or even 6, depending on the sub faction they took. So the base witch is 3 attacks at strength 3, toughness 3, right? But their Hekatari blade, which is their basic close combat weapon, is a chainsword. It's -1 AP, and it gives an additional attack. So standing still, your basic witch has 4 attacks at -1. So, okay, sure. Well, the other thing is, if they roll a 6 to wound, then the Blade Artist's ability triggers, which gives them an additional -1 AP. So even if you use Line Unbreakable, you're going to get hit by 5 or 6 of these people, maybe even 10. Right, because their squads can go up to 20 unless they're the upgraded succubus, the upgraded witches, which are blood brides, and then 5 or 6 witches hitting you with 20+ attacks that are going to be -1. They're going to be wounding on at least 4s because they probably got the +1 strength drug, or they're cursed blades. They are natively +1 strength, and they're going to be anywhere from -1 to -4 AP, because blood brides, when they're Blade Artist ability trigger, get an additional -3 instead of an additional -1. So the volume of high AP attacks is there. I lost an entire squad of Ravenwing bikes to 5 blood brides.
Oh, yikes!
Including these. So I think there was 2.5 bikes left. All right, and the rest of the unit had been beaten up by charging Reaver jet bikes. So I lost I lost a few wounds off that, and then these last couple of blood brides hit, and I was like, I'm just going to use Line Unbreakable. I know I'm going to lose the squad, but I want to see if it makes a difference. It didn't. It absolutely didn't. He didn't even get to the Hecatrix, which is the sergeant with her power weapon. Once again, that was going to be at strength 5 at -4 AP with all the Blade Artist stuff triggered on it. So if they hit you, they're going to hurt you badly. They are going to hurt you badly. So don't think that your toughness is going to save you if you're using bikes. It's not. They've probably got an ability to hype themselves up on drugs to get either wounding on 4s or even wounding on 3s. And the AP is going. They've got enough AP that it's going to stack up and it's going to kill them. Similarly, Terminators. These units are tailor-made to kill Deathwing Terminators. They don't need to wound you on anything less than a 4. They don't. They're just going to throw 40 dice at you. right? And that's going to be -1 base, probably -2 in a lot, which is going to take you from your 1-up save on your Storm Shield down to a 3-up save, and you're just going to roll a bunch of 1s. That's all there is to it. So, yeah,
that's been my experience.
These units are
killing Deathwing Terminators.
Yeah, that's how you do it. That's how, like, with the game that you and I played, Bailey. That's how I did it. That's how I killed 5 Deathwing Terminators. Just throw a bunch of witches at them and make you roll a bunch of dice, and eventually you're going to roll 1s. So these units are tailor made.
I think I even used Line Unbreakable in that game too.
That was before Line Unbreakable existed. Because that was before the Codex. So these units are tailor made to kill Space Marine combat units or Space Marine squads. It is. So the key then is how to prevent that from happening. And my opinion is that your best bet here is to prevent them from, if the Dark Elder player can commit in accordance with their plan, which they're mostly always going to be able to do because they're going to be able to outspeed you and they're going to be able to outplay the terrain because all their stuff has fly. Then they will be able to, apply mass where you have not massed. So they will be able to overwhelm you on a point section and kick you off an objective without, at their choosing, almost indubitably. I don't know if they're gonna be able to get through a 10-man squad of Deathwing Knights, but they're gonna kill a lot of them, and then the next turn they're probably gonna kill the rest. So it's and once again they all have 4-up invul saves, so the return fire from your Marines isn't gonna do quite what you think it will, unless you're double fighting assault intercessors. So yeah, don't get mixed up, and you can't fall back from them. I tried to do the Ravenwing Swift Strike thing, where I was like, I'm gonna interrupt, fight, make myself a hole, and then Swift Strike through it. And he's like, it's a fallback. I was like, yep. He's like, so here's the thing: you have to roll against me to fall back, and I have 3 witch units in contact with you. You have to roll against each one. I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. Didn't work. They killed him. So a lot of the stuff we talked about with how to get Ravenwing units skirmish in, get out, is not valid in this case. So your best bet, I think, for a lot of these cases is going to be to keep units in reserve, whether in actual strategic reserve or in a tactical reserve in your backfield, so that when you do find the opportunity and they get out of the transports and you can gun them down, then your Ravenwing units can jump forward with full throttle to jump on objectives after that. So the only way to beat them, I think, is going to be to... Oh, go ahead.
Well, that reminds me of some of the tactics that I've been using against other armies, that like the Rhino Rush. I've seen some Chaos players and things run Rhino Rushes, or other Marine players with Impulsor Rush. What I found in a lot of cases where units and armies are playing with a lot of units and transports, the first person to blink loses. The first person to let their guys out of the tank first, they end up picking those models up the next turn to what, if they hop out and attack your tank to kill your tank to take the guy, to try and take on the guys inside.
Yeah.
And unless, with the big, you're not going to have 20 witches coming out of the raider, right? You're only going to have 10. So unless you got all the stuff,
they can have 11. They can have 11.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. One of my friends, my roommate said that's actually one of the biggest buffs.
It is
to them is that you can put a character and a full squad of people, and not just the Raider, but the Venoms too. They upped them to 6.
The Venoms went to 6 from 5, which was one of the big complaints we had about the Extinction Codex. So no, you're right. There is a lot of parallels to the way you fight the Rhino Rush or the Impulsor Rush.
Yeah.
But one of the things to consider that's different here is so the vehicles are not as tough by any stretch of the imagination. Raiders went up to T6 instead of T5, but they still have a 4-up armor save, but they gained a 6-up invul save. So they have so their Night Shields give them a 5-up invul save against range attacks, but Power from Pain, which does affect vehicles now, gives them a 6-up invul save. Period. So a 6-up invul save in close combat. So
that's pretty good.
You can one Deathwing Terminator can swing a Thunderhammer and very easily kill a Raider, which I did. But the thing to realize is, sure, if you jump out, blink, and try and surround him, then they're going to mass 2 or 3 other units on you, including Reaver jet bikes. Reaver jet bikes do legitimately have a 35-inch threat range because they can move 26 to 28 inches, depending on if they have the combat drug, and then advance and charge. So you can expect to see a reserve squad of jet bikes that's 26 inches away, or 30 something inches away, just jump forward from behind cover, and then charge something to suck up Overwatch. Right, or the Raider's going to charge in to suck up the Overwatch, or if you jump something out, they're going to swarm it with 2 units, right? And they will swarm your impulsors. So when you jump out, you have to emergency disembark. Yeah, it's a tough proposition. They're straight up faster than you in every possible way. So they don't. And that's it. Full throttle gives you the ability to move faster than them, 1 unit for 1 turn, but. It's best going to be used jumping on it or flipping an objective and then reinforcing it quickly.
Yeah. Well, and then my roommate was telling me how happy he was with the Hellion buffs. That it used to just be like, oh, you're just going to take Reavers, and it's now it's going to be Hellion swarms. That seems to be his.
So for anyone listening who doesn't know what Hellions are basically the biker gangs. They're basically jump infantry. They ride a little skyboard, right? So they have the fly keyword. They have a base
Green Goblin style.
Yeah, they're Green Goblin looking dudes. So they're the thing that makes them interesting is, one, they're witches, so they can take combat drugs, and they have their weapons. They're called Hellglaives, and the Hellglaives are 2 flat damage, right? So they're +1 strength. So they're strength 4, I think -1, 2 flat damage. So they're a legit threat against Space Marines. All right, there we go. Hellglaive.
That's what I got.
+1, -1, 2 flat damage. So they can very easy, and they have poison weapons on their boards. So 14-inch base move, 3 attack space each, which has gone up since since the last codex. And they can definitely get places. No, they're not as fast as Reavers, and they're as fast as the rest of the army, which is still say that's twice as fast as any other army in this freaking game.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think that they're going to jump them over something and they have a stratagem called eviscerating flyby. So it's a witch cult unit that can fly, moves over a unit. Then you use a stratagem, and you roll a die for every one of your models that moved over that unit. And on a 5+, they take a mortal wound.
Yeah.
But if it's an infantry unit that you moved over, you get +1 to that roll. So you could jump over an infantry you have to have 20 Hellions. You could jump over, and theoretically do like 10 mortal wounds to an infantry squad. But the thing is, 14 inches plus a D6 advance really isn't that far when you're talking about trying to catch somebody out. And Hellions have a huge footprint. Like it's a fairly big model. I have one I can go grab real quick. So Hellions are a fairly decent sized model, like vertically. And imagine trying to put 20 of these dudes, behind something. It's a huge footprint that you're going to want to.
What's the base size there to help the people at home that are listening on this?
These are the small flyer bases. Small flyer bases. Okay. So it's like a 32 mil flyer base. And they're very squishy, and they're gonna take up real estate that you would otherwise want to use to keep your raiders safe. So
okay.
So I can see that. But the other option you could have is you could bring them out of a webway, because they are infantry, so they can come out of the webway, deep strike natively for free or for 1 CP, and
they don't have a bike keyword.
True. Yeah. So they're going to come out of the webway, but the turn you come out of the webway, they're not going to be doing their eviscerating flyby jump move, right? They're just going to try and charge something. Right. So, which is fair. There's that's doable, and there are ways to get them like +1 to charge. But they're not going to be the long range like zoom surprise that the Reavers with eviscerating flyby are. So once again, they could be a very interesting kind of hold for late game reserve unit. So. Yeah, no, it's a cool tactic, but you're gonna have to be real close to make it happen. And these things die to bolter fire like it's not even funny. So, yeah, they just go down super hard. So, what else you got for me in terms of questions? Because I can just ramble, but
no, right. Well, let's do one more, then we can move on to our main segment here. What about? I'd say one of the big things that changed for me. this edition playing Space Marines is that the characters got toned down like crazy with the removal of certain stratagems and the inability to fight twice. Like, you can't fight and then fight when you die. So what are we seeing on the Druhkari side with characters? Did any of their characters get a big surprise? I've heard that Lilith kind of stayed meh, but some of the other characters got big buffs.
That's a good question. So it's kind of a mixed bag. So the Dark Eldar don't have access to a lot of characters, unlike Space Marines, where you have like 40 pages of characters and named characters and all this.
Just lieutenants and named lieutenants.
So, but the Druhkari have 3 basic characters, right? They have an Archon, who's the Kabbalite leader, and then they have the Succubus, who's the Witch Cult leader, and they have a Homunculus, who's the Homunculus Coven leader. And you can spend points to upgrade each of those to their own special thing, right? And that gives them their own special little power. But they all so the Homunculus actually got less good in close combat. He was decent before, because he could take a weapon called an Electric Corrosive Whip, which was a poisoned -2 AP, 2 damage close combat weapon, and he had 5 attacks before. So homunculuses were surprise scary in close combat, but they lost the ability to take that now. So without an Electro Whip, homunculuses, I'm not worried about them in close combat. They're really just there to buff the Talos and buff the Grotesques, which, by the way, Talos and Grotesques have the core keyword. What? Big changes on the Coven side. Big changes on the Coven side. I'm going to continue to answer your question, and there's like 2 more points I want to point out that are big changes to this army before we move on. So, Archons were never really like super baller close combat fighters, like they're supposed to be, but they're really not. They had 5 attacks, and the Husk Blades was like a +1 strength, -2 D3 damage weapon, like whatever, like sure. They're the troll field, like the shadow field of trolling, which was the 2+ symbol save against everything until the first time you failed it, and it's just gone, which was just so incredibly such a Dark Eldar weapon. It's just so arrogant. I loved it. You just roll him into like anything and just like, screw you, get out of here, blah blah blah, until like, oh crap, now I'm dead. But my favorite one
of those was the Daka Flyrant, 24 shots with the strength 6 guns, hitting on 2s, and because I took the one
that's how you break
modifiers. That's how you break when the guy had like 16 wounds to roll, and he goes to roll that first one, he's like, yeah, whatever, dude. 1, and he went to re-roll it with a command point, and he's like, oh wait, I can't do that.
No, you can't do that.
All right, roll the rest of those 6-up saves.
One of the things to be aware of is that you are not required to take the best save. So, as a Dark Eldar player, one of the things I would commonly do is people try and troll out the shadow field. Like, oh, I'm going to shoot my bolters at you. I'm like, all right, I'm taking my 5-up armor save. He's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, I have a 5-up armor save. He's like, what's your shadow field? Like, that's for the Melt-A-Gun and the Thunderhammer. I'm going to take armor saves. So, and your Kabalites actually got a 4-up armor save now instead of a 5-up. So you can so they are perfectly allowed to take their 4-up armor save or their 6-up invul save from Power from Pain instead of the shadow field save. And then save the shadow field for the Melt-A-Gun that's coming or the Thunderhammer. That is perfectly legit. So expect that to happen. So they do have the ability.
Invuln too.
Yeah, you're never going to see it.
I saw that.
So it's a 4-up invul save that replaces the shadow field when it fails. You're never going to see it because there's better options. You're not going to take that over the Writ of the Living Muse or the Jin Blade. I'd be surprised. I mean, there's probably a case for it someplace, but it's definitely not the best option. So you can make a close combat Archon, but it's not like, I don't really see the point, because the Master Succubus is she's absolute hell on wheels. The Master Succubus will just blender almost anything. A Master Succubus, I feel very confident, could solo a Lord of Change with the Impossible Robe. They're terrifying. The Master Succubus, so let's see, an Archon, close combat Archon, unless they have a Jin Blade and the Warlord trait Hatred Eternal, don't worry about it. They're not going to they're not going to threaten a Space Marine character or a Space Marine combat unit. The Jin Blade is a strength 4 -3 3 flat damage, a weapon that gives you +2 attacks. It's basically a demon blade, like a possessed. It's a possessed demon blade. So he ends up with like 7 attacks, and Hatred Eternal lets him reroll all hits and all wounds. So that is scary.
Oh yeah,
but,
that's good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's not terrifyingly scary because you can just control access. Control his access to the fight. But the Master Succubus, stay the hell away from her. And the thing is, you don't have a choice. She's going to get to you. So once again, all the coming out of the Raider, all that movement, all that charge, all that range. They have Succubi have 6 attacks base. They can take a Relic Whip that gives them +3 attacks, right? And that Relic Whip hits on 2, or she's going to hit on 2s. The Relic Whip is poison 2+, and it's 2 flat damage, and it's -2 AP. So that's 9 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, 2 damage at a significant AP. And they can take a Warlord trait called Precision Blows that is going to make it so that every 6 they roll to hit, it will do the weapon's damage in
Mortal Wounds.
In Mortal Wounds. Right.
That
may not work. If you give me a second, actually, it's something in my head. Somebody that may not. It may specifically exempt relics. But yeah. So there's actually no. It does. That does work. There's another wombo combo that specifically exudes relics. It's the potent they have a stratagem called potent metallotoxins, which makes it so that they're poison weapons that normally wound vehicles on 6s instead wound vehicles on their AP or on their regular poison, but that does not work on relics. So the Master Succubus's Triptych Whip is not gonna. She's not gonna roll up to a Land Raider and just you're done. So
yeah,
but the mortal wounds coming out of the Succubus with Precision Blows is really good. She's gonna bypass your invul save. She's gonna hit you probably 7 or 8 times, wound you 7 or 8 times, and then do 6 mortal wounds, and then 4 or 5 additional -2 damage if you fail your save. Yeah. So, and if she's a Cultist Strife Succubus, using some of the stuff out of Warzone Caradon, Book of Rust, they have a Warlord trait that lets them instead, which you do this in addition instead of the mortal wound thing, they would. For every attack that does not get to the inflict damage step, they get an additional attack after at the end of the combat phase.
Ooh.
Right? So yeah, and they can be an absolute blender. Ooh. Now, all that is just damage output. The thing that's where the Dark Elder player is gonna make your head spin is the Master Succubus's Show Stealer ability. This is the ability they get when they upgrade her to a Master Succubus. It's basically like, you remember the old Iron Hand's Super Broken Warlord trait, Student of History, where they could consolidate 6 inches in any direction, not towards the nearest enemy model? It's that.
Oh.
It's that. So she just roll in there, like, do 6, like, hit you 9 times with this stupid whip, do 6 or 8 mortal wounds, and then just run away. Like just consolidate away from you 6 inches.
Well, and if she's one of those ones, isn't there one that they can consolidate into vehicles? Isn't there one of those?
I'm not sure what you're getting at. I mean, like, she could consolidate into vehicles.
Like what I'm saying is, like, is there a stratagem where, like, she comes out of the venom, she fights me, and then when she's done fighting, she consolidates away from me back into the and embarks into the that way you don't even get to see her. Like, she comes out, she punches you, and then she runs away.
Yeah, that's tied to the Cult of the Red Grief, which is one of the sub factions of the Witch Cult, which are good. They're all kind of got their own little things. I kind of bounce back and forth between Red Grief and Cursed Blade. Cursed Blade, all your witches get +1 strength, which is amazing because it makes them parity with Space Marines. Red Grief, they get a little extra speed and they get to reroll their advances of charges. Sorry, reroll their charges, not advances. So, and they have access, and
they add to their advance roll.
Yeah, and they add to the advance roll. So, Red Grief are a little faster. So that's what you need to worry about the characters. That last one, Drazar. Don't get anywhere near Drazar.
Oh, yeah, I've heard he's brutal.
Don't get anywhere near Drazar.
He's brutal in general for Marine players.
Drazar was a monster in 8th edition, and he's high on crack cocaine. in Ninth Edition. Used to be he got to double activate without waiting to the end of the combat phase. Now he just double act on the turn he charged. Now he double activates every single turn.
Oh, and when there's very little of that, that's very
every
powerful.
Single turn. Yes, and him and the Incubi, their weapon profiles are incredible, right? He gives Incubi +1 to wound. His base weapon's 2 damage. He has a double strike that's +3. That's 3 damage. Huge number of attacks. 2 up armor, 4 up invul. He's a Phoenix Lord, like he's a fallen Phoenix Lord, and he hits the things on the table like he cares. The other thing, so Dark Eldar have a widespread ability to make you fight last. I saw this coming, and I took in the game I played. I took Mind Wipe to try and counteract this. But once again, it doesn't really matter because a good Dark Eldar player, you're not going to see those witches until they're on top of you because they're going to be inside the transports.
Yeah.
So a Judikar would help to control that, or the Eye of the Unseen would help to control that. But once again, Eye of the Unseen only works on characters; it doesn't work on units. So Engulfing Fear, the spell, is not going to save. Is not going to help you here. The Archon has a Warlord trait which will make someone nearby him fight last. Every single Incubi unit and Drazhar have a Tormentor, which is they make you roll a leadership. They roll a leadership check, and if they get higher than your leadership value, you have to fight last. And it's the good fight last wording. It's the not eligible to be chosen until, right? And then you're like, okay, well, leadership. Space Marines have good leadership. Well, they also have a lot of ways to debuff your leadership, which brings me to the absolute last point. So even though they don't have psychic powers, they have a broad variety of things that can output mortal wounds. So they have a piece of war gear called a Phantasm Grenade Launcher, which you'll see which every vehicle can take and every sergeant and character can take. And a Phantasm Grenade Launcher is a D3 shot blast weapon. If it hits you, for every hit, they roll a 2d6, and if it's above your leadership, you take a mortal wound. So then all those vehicles can also have a piece of war gear called Grizzly Trophies, which is every enemy unit within 6 inches of the Grizzly Trophies gets -2 to their leadership. So they will power slide a Venom or a Raider in, right? And then, now you're under the effect of Grizzly Trophies. Now I'm going to PGL you 6 times and take your leadership from 8 down to a 6. And now I've got a better than 50% chance of doing mortal wounds to you. And if they have Coven of the Dark Creed units nearby, that'll throw an additional -1 onto it. So now my leadership 8 Space Marines are leadership 5, right? I was taking mortal wounds on Deathwing Terminators with leadership 9 because he would debuff it down to 6.
Ooh. Yep.
So
that would do it.
And I think I took 12 or 14 mortal wounds in one shooting phase from Phantasm Grenade Launchers. So
that will do it.
So once again, I think the key to this army is to kill the vehicles, right? Just try and keep the vehicles at arm's length. You're gonna lose the primary mission on turn 1 and turn 2. I don't see a way around it. Please, if you've got some experience in this field, like if you think you got something, please hit me up in the comments. Let's talk about it. Come into the secret order. And so I think you need to kill the vehicles, right? Just not, like if they deploy poorly, or if you can use your Raven Wing kind of to get around the edges, get a line of sight, knock the vehicles down, get them all out of their transports, unhorse them, make them come across the open field to you, and then just shoot them with guns. Right? They will be far less annoying if they are. They'll be far. Look, once again, once they lose the ability to move out of those transports, they lose 3 inches of range for charging because they're not stepping out of the transports, and they lose kind of that first layer of protection. So, but playing the terrain smart and then don't overexpose yourself is also going to be a big thing. They do have some movement shenanigans. Actually, the Dark Eldar stratagem repository is very, very small. There's a couple of really good ones, but they don't have a lot of stratagems, and they've only got 6 relics in the whole book, right? Or 6 general relics, because there's
their
like
warlord
18
traits. They only have 3.
Yeah,
per character.
So they're there's 3 warlord traits per type, right? There's 3 for the Archon, 3 for the Coven, 3 for the Succubus, and because each of the individual subfactions, there's 4 Cabals, 3 Covens, and 3 cults. Each of them have their own stratagem, warlord trait, and relic. So most of the books, stratagem, warlord traits, and relics are kind of dedicated to that. So They do have some movement shenanigans. They can pull a transport off the board as long as it's within 6 inches of the board edge and put it back into reserve. And they do have the ability to disembark a unit from a vehicle after it has come in from reserve. Right, so you can drop a transport with an Archon on the table, jump everything out, right, and then all of a sudden your Archon with his auras is there, or So there's a use case for those. You're probably not going to see that because of Auspex scan, but yeah, there's a lot of real tricky stuff in this book. The way that they build their primary. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say my point with the Warlord traits is that with Space Marines you have the 6 in the core book, you have the 6 regular Dark Angels ones, and then depending if you're Deathwing or Raywing, now you get 3 more. And so if you compare all of that to the 4 that you get, well, I guess 5 if you make a Master, that's still not anywhere near what the Space Marines can do.
Right, and the way this book is balanced is that everything is very, very, very vertically siloed, right? So you can only take... when you commit to one faction and sub-faction, and that locks you into this very narrow set of choices. And they got some more flexibility with building detachments with what's called a real space raid, but that is actually a very complex detachment. Cool. If you run into it, you need to be real careful about overlapping auras and keywords, because it's such a complex thing to do that it's not worth going into here. But basically, it's so complex that they actually gave an example of how to correctly use it in the book, which I have not seen before. And here's an example of how the rules are correctly used. So, there's
before anybody tries to game this.
And listen, and the way the auras or the way the keywords work in that real space raid attachment are very specific. 2 last things. One, if you see Drazar, like I said, once again, stay the hell away from that dude. But it's very unlikely, because you cannot take Drazar in a real space raid because of the way that the requirements for the HQ slots work out, unless it is a brigade-sized real space raid. But how often? I don't think you're going to see those very often. So, if you see him, it's probably in the raiding party patrol detachment setup, which removes a lot of the power from the real space raid. So, the Cabal Archon being able to share his reroll auras with everybody, which is nuts. And the last thing is the Homunculus Covens, the Meat Mountain list that was super powerful and super popular during 8th edition with all the Talos and all the Grotesques. It got nerfed a lot. They lost the widespread invols, and the army lost Feel No Pain as a widespread thing. The Covens traded their 5-up invul save for a 5-up Feel No Pain. And they have the 6-up invul save from the Power from Pain. And it goes to a 5-up on turn 4. So, as you will know, a 4-up invul, 6-up invul, 5-up Feel No Pain is not as durable as 4-up invul, 6-up Feel No Pain. So, I would expect to see a decrease in the amount of Coven stuff that you're going to see in favor of the Witches and the Raiders, just because the mobility and the speed and the punching power. And they're just going to push you back in your deployment zone, hem you in, and then sit there and hold objectives and get points. So, what? Given that brief, what do you think, Bailey?
Well, I guess the last thing to add about the racks that I saw was that the big thing, was with the Prophets of Flesh. Everyone just ran Prophets of Flesh because they just had that inherent 4-up invul. Well, with the new super, how there's the Blood Brides and the Trueborn are back, right? I thought that was cool that all that stuff came back.
Yeah, I agree.
There's the Coven version. Well, that Coven version gives whatever rack unit that is +1 to whatever their invul and save is. So when you get to that turn 4, 5-up, they all are going to have a 4-up invul. It's not just Prophets of Flesh anymore. Granted, it's one unit.
That's just the unit of Homoxites.
All of them can.
Yeah,
so it's not Prophets of Flesh, I don't have to worry about that. No, you do. Any of them can have it.
So grotesques are potentially an issue. So grotesques, once again, you're not going to have a bunch of 40 wounds of 4-up invul save charging at you to punch you, but grotesques can now take each individual model. Every single model in that unit can take a liquefier gun, and liquefier guns are really good now.
Yeah, those are gross.
Yeah. especially Dark Technomancer liquefier guns that can overcharge for +1 wound and +1 damage without fear of overheating, because overheating happens on the hit step instead of the wound step. So if I was being cheeky, I'd put 3 grotesques in a raider and run around like shooting overcharged, strength 4 -2 2 damage flavors at people. But hey, what do I know? So, all right, so yeah, that's the Druhkari. More to come later when we get more games in, and we'll see what the Metawatch says about them. But initial brief is you need to be worried about this codex. The things that I thought our codex was going to do to mitigate them were not effective, or at least they're not blatantly effective. You have to be very careful in how you apply and where you use those stratagems. And it all just comes down to catching those big units of troops in the middle of the field so you can shoot them down with guns. Right? Get them out of their transports, get them in an open field, and just gun them down. Don't try and fight witches in close combat. It's only going to meet with tears. Unless you can get the charge off with a unit of double 5-ing intercessors, assault intercessors. Deathwing they're not the right place to go in that. They're just going to tear Deathwing apart, with weight of attacks. So
that's been my experience. Don't mess with that.
So anyway, okay, that concludes the brief on the Druhkari.
Yeah, that sounds helpful, and it's definitely going to send me back to the drawing board and think about a few things. And luckily, I have literally an in-house Druhkari player that I can have beat up on me until I figure out what the heck I'm going to do with these things. And what I like about it is that you look at what Dark Angels would do. I was like, oh, I have this Dark Angels. They're perfect for fighting, or they have like a perfect setup to deal with Death Guard. And then it's like Druhkari come out and you're like, oh, we got that rock paper scissors thing going here where one beats one, beats one, beats one, and it's like, oh gosh, here we go. But that's where you want to be. You don't want it to just be, hey everybody, the top lists at the biggest tournament of the year are all literally the exact same copy of the same list, and it's just who can pilot it.
That's better. A boring game, man. That's a boring game.
We don't want to see that. Now, those guys didn't work hard. I mean, because I know they worked hard to get that figured out. It's like, now everybody wants to see lots of different things. Well, speaking of different things, right, we have Successor Chapters with Dark Angels. Now, and I'll point out that this is something that I've not really looked at myself until we had this monthly challenge, which we'll get to at the end of the episode today, of looking at Successor Chapters, because I played Dark Angels because I like Dark Angels. I like the characters, I like the robes, I like the color scheme. So why in the world would I ever want to play Successor Chapters? Well, that's why we had the challenge. And I've actually found there's actually some interesting things. When you take away the characters, the special characters for the Dark Angels, there's some things that maybe you've always thought about running, but you never did because you just, like, I feel shoehorned to take Ezreal if I run Greenwing. I feel shoehorned to bring Sammy. I feel shoehorned to bring this, this character
Ezekiel.
And that character.
Good lord.
Yeah, Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like... When that's not even an option, it's like, okay, well now since I just can't rely on a 4-up invuln against shooting the whole game to get my boys in place, I got to do something else. And I felt that was kind of stress relieving. I was like, oh yeah, I can try this, I can try that. I did. This is kind of giving away the monthly challenge early. I did get to play with the Successor Chapter, and I did take Master Artisan, and I did take the Long Range Marksman. So I'll talk about those two first, if you don't mind, because I actually played my game with that. I thought about taking Signs of the Forge. It was real close. I was like, ooh, double the wounds on my tanks and my Dark Talons and stuff. That sounds really good.
Just to jump in real second, so Long Range Marksman, add 3 inches to the range characteristic of rapid fire and heavy weapons, excluding flame weapons. Okay, and then Master Artisans, each time a unit with this tactic is selected to shoot or fight, you can reroll 1 hit roll when resolving that unit's attacks. Okay.
Yes. As opposed to Signs of the Forge, which says that you basically get to count whatever your wounds characteristic is on your chart, you count as double.
Yeah. Yep.
So that way if you're really beat up, you can... it doesn't hurt you as bad. I really, really wanted to take that, but then I was like, wait, whenever I play with my Gladiator tank... Does it really survive more than 1 turn? No. Do my Dark Talons ever survive 1 turn of... No. I was like, all right, forget it. I'm going to go all out. We're just going to try and blow stuff up. And that's one of the reasons why I took Master Artisan, is I looked at it and went, okay, a lot of the cool tanks and things, like, the Dark Talon, the gladiator tank, those things, they don't have the core keyword. They don't get rerolls.
Yeah.
Unless they take this. And so that really big gun on the Dark Talon where, like, all right, it's D3 shots or whatever, and you're like, ooh, I only rolled one shot. Man, I really wish I hit with it.
Each hit, goal.
Yeah. So like, you really want to make sure that thing hits every turn, and especially if you only roll one hit and you're like, oh crud, I'm only going to get one shot with this gun. Well, I better make sure it gets through this turn. So you get that free reroll per each one, which is nice.
Yep.
Same thing with my gladiator tank. When he rolled out and he's dunking all of his shots downrange, being able to pick up that one that because I'm giving him +1 to hit and whatnot from my tech. I had a tech marine. That one I rolled when I'm firing 4 melta-guns and 4 las cannon shots out of him. It's like, yeah, well, now I hit with everything. And here's 8 shots of death coming to wound you now. That was nice. And then having the extra range on the gladiator was nice because he has all those short-range 24-inch guns. Mm-hmm. At least the one that I was running where it has the melta and the las cannons.
The Valiant? Yeah, the Valiant.
Yeah. Now it's 27 inches. So if you were in a duel in a mirror match duel, you actually outrange the target, and then that gives you, it feels like it makes it a little more, gives it more reach, and that's why I always feel like that's the problem with that tank. It has no reach because 24 inches really isn't that far when it comes to dealing with tanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But 27 is like, okay, well, it's a little bit better. That actually is really cool on Talon Masters because I ran one of those. I ran the crazy, brilliant strategist with the Arbiter's Gaze.
Arbiter's Gaze. Oh, yeah. That's a combo.
So that way it always hits on the 2.
That too. Yeah, I tried that too. Real good.
Now put 3 inches on him. And he gets a free reroll.
Yep.
And that's what that was. And it did. And then when you're taking Death on the Wind as your secondary, it does what it does. So I like that. And I think that's pretty much, I didn't win. I was playing a guy he plays Iron Warriors. He played 2 Defilers. All right, how often have you seen that?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, okay. He's a real fluffy player. He doesn't like playing really competitive lists, and so I was like, he was asking. He always asks for a game in our Facebook group, and people don't always respond. So I thought, you know what? I'm just trying this out to see what happens. He would get it. He'd love it. He loved the idea that I was just trying something different, and it wasn't, super competitive because I didn't think of it as super competitive. I'm like, I just want to play with these models because that's how he plays. He's like, I like these models, they're cool, I want to play with them. I'm like, hey, I'm going to take these successor tactics, see if it helps these models that I would like to run that just aren't good enough. Does it make them better? And so I did that, and it was fun.
Yeah, that's good. I like the low pressure games. You're like, you know what? I'm going to try something different. and sometimes when you put that restriction on yourself, you find some stuff. Like, I thought I understood the Druhkari Codex in, out, up, down, left, right. I had that thing mastered. And then when the Phoenix Rising came out, and I was like, fine, I want to try Dark Technomancers. I want to try some of these custom things. And because I wasn't able to fall back on Prophets of the Flesh, I started trying some of the other relics and warlord traits in that book, and I found some interesting stuff. So when I wrote the list for our Green Wing episode last month, I initially intended it to be a Successor Chapter, but then because we didn't brief it that way, and we wanted to try and provide the most value for just the Dark Angels Green Wing, I changed it back. But a lot of the stuff that was in that book that was going to work as really, really well as a Successor Chapter still works really good as Dark Angels Prime. So, yeah. So what was roughly, just real quick, the list that you were using with Master Artisans and Long Range Marksmen?
I had double Dark Talons, the Crazy Lieutenant, or Talon Master, the Melta version of the new Land Speeder.
Okay. Yeah.
Tech Marine, the basic, like not even the Primaris, just the regular one. The Baby Marine one, the Gladiator, an assortment of intercessors and incursors to cap objectives. That was pretty much it. Like there was one attack bike with a heavy bolter. Like I did not tool that list to, because he talked to me beforehand. He's like, "You're not bringing all those Deathwing Terminator guys, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that."
No.
Because he was like, "Good, because I don't like playing that." And I'm like, "Don't worry, dude. I'm not here to troll you."
Big thing to note about Successor Chapters. The big trade-off is that Inner Circle and Jink only work for the Dark Angels. So the Prime chapter. So if you play a Successor Chapter, you give up Inner Circle and you give up Jink. You can still bring Deathwing and Ravenwing, but they just won't have that defining feature. So they'll still have access to their stratagems, and their warlord traits, but they won't get Jink and they won't get Inner Circle. So which is a big trade-off. It was a really big trade-off. So that's why we figure most people aren't talking about how to do Successor Chapters, because who's going to give up Jink and Inner Circle? But I said there could be some interesting builds here. One of the things
that's called Ultramarines players.
Right. Yeah. Ultramarines and Imperial Fist. Something to think about. I just thought Scions of the Forge. Why not take a bunch of Dreadnoughts with that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A bunch of Redemptor and Contemptor Dreadnoughts.
That's
cool.
what I did. That's the part that I forgot to mention. I did bring the Redemptor, and I did bring the Relic Contemptor with the plasma things that you were telling me about. I did bring that, and those guys were just eating stuff. That was awesome.
Yeah, so Contemptors, because Unyielding Ancient, or no, Duty Eternal, which is their innate built-in -1 damage roll, would kind of mitigate and they just get one-shotted straight off the bat. That would help you with that, and then Long Range Marksman makes them hit better. But for that, I think either Master Artisans or Scions of the Forge, because Long Range Marksman, they're going to be moving forward to punch stuff, so they really don't need the range. But okay. So I think that's an interesting build. How did the Dark Angels specific rules and stratagems interact with that build that made you like it?
Well. The Arbiter's Gaze is nice, and the fact that you can run a Talon Master, that's that's pretty Dark Angel specific. Nobody else can do that. I did get away with a Swift Strike once with the Land Speeder, not the Talon Master, just the regular one, because I managed to fly it out of danger into his deployment zone, where I could fly in, kill some cultists, because he actually had cultists, to get Death on the Wind. Mm-hmm. Or no.
Yep.
I think I shot something a little bit bigger. I think I sniped a character. I moved right on top of a character, shot. Oh, I Swift Strike twice with him, because he charged it. I interrupted, used Swift Strike to jump it out of combat on his turn into his deployment zone. So on my turn, I moved it on top of one of his characters, sniped it with Melta, charged something else, and then Swift Strike my way out of into the line of, I was just bouncing around his deployment zone, because he had this big super Hellbrute with lots of las cannons shooting twice. Something it was gonna kill it, and I was like, I don't want to die, so I'm gonna jump around, kill this guy, get my points, because I had Assassinate too. So I was a 5-pointer right there. Charge this other thing to move away, and then run away.
So this is the big Hammer Strike Storm Speeder. Or one of the Storm Speeder variants. So the idea of being able to use that to get out of combat, on his turn, move into his deployment zone, and then if its characters aren't properly screened, you can move and then, put that 3 Melta, dumb gun into whatever needs to die, charge something else. Yeah, okay. So that's cool. It's a big platform to be able to, be as mobile as that. So that's interesting.
It was a big dump, but a bunch of my stuff had died before I had a chance to do anything else. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this. I think it goes. Did I use Weapons of the Dark Age at least once on one of those? Because I put the big plasma gun on the Redemptor, and then you have the double plasma battery on the Contemptor. Yeah. So I can't remember if I did that once. I thought I spent a good minute thinking about it at one point, and then I went, no, I need those to do this, and then I did something else. But the thought was there. Taking any kind, that's a generic Marine one. I didn't do any of the special you get to take a relic, the Blessed by the Chapter, Honored by the Chapter thing, where you get the. I didn't use that.
Dark Angels relics.
I was I didn't need any of those. outside, because you can take the special issue war gear ones as a successor and not have to worry about taking that stratagem, which is why I took the Arbiter's Gaze on the Talon Master. Outside of that, I can't really think of anything that much that I used.
Other really good non-relic relic. What are they called again? The non-relic relics?
Special issue war gear.
Special issue war gear. Yeah, that's right. The Heavenfall Blade is a special issue war gear.
Oh,
and like I said, another really interesting thing to do with that is if you... so Whirlwind of Rage. Let's talk about Whirlwind of Rage. Yes. So Whirlwind of Rage... each time a model with this tactic makes a melee attack, if that model's unit made a charge move, was charged, or performed heroic intervention, an unmodified hit roll of a 6 scores 1 additional hit. You cannot pair this with Duelists. Right? Duelist is another exploding... it's unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds. So I think that Whirlwind of Rage is a really interesting pair with Dark Angel Successors because you have access to so many ways to reroll hits. You've got a Psychic Power that does it. You've got, your chapter master, your litanies from your chaplains, and then put that Heavenfall Blade on an Assault Intercessor Sergeant. Fight him twice.
Oh yeah, with that new strategy.
It just does a lot of work. So that was, I think, one of the things I thought was one of the best pairs for a Dark Angel Successor is Assault Intercessors. Like 2 big bricks of 10 Assault Intercessors they're not going to be worried about morale because the Dark Angels actually disregard. That's a Dark Angels thing, the Grim Resolve. So
yeah,
but yeah, the other interesting thing here. So I like what you said with the Talon Masters and the Dark Talons. But what I would have done with that is I would have gone with Bolter Fusillades. So any bolt weapon can reroll ones to hit, just like you said. Stuff that gives you a way that you can make stuff that doesn't normally have the core keyword get access to rerolls. So your Talon Masters and your Dark Talons, so those paired Hurricane Bolters now have access to reroll ones to hit, right? And your Heavy Bolters have reroll ones to hit. And then, I don't know, maybe something like Centurions, your bikes. Yeah, your bikes have reroll ones to hit. Your attack bikes have rerolls. So Bolter Fusillades and Master Artisans, so that all your just build the whole army around bolters and high quality, low shot, like multi-meltas, las cannons, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you'll get a lot of mileage out of that. And then with the additional mobility stratagems that the Ravenwing stuff gives you, even if you don't have the 5-up invul save, you'll still be able to get that stuff into position with your Devastator Doctrine and Speed of the Raven and full throttle to get it where it needs to go. So I think that's an interesting one. Once again, it's real hard to keep. The only downside is it's real hard to keep Dark Talons alive if they don't have a 5-up invul save or a 4-up invul save. But you could rely on the 4-up invul save that a Dark Ravenwing vehicle can get with the stratagem.
Yeah,
to keep one Dark Talon alive. So,
well, with that Whirlwind of Rage too, you can pair that with Tactical Withdrawal because you said that triggers on them charging, being charged, intervening.
Yes,
that Tactical Withdrawal thing lets you fall back, so you can always on your turn, so you can always keep re-triggering it.
You can always fall back and charge. Yeah,
stuck. So that way you don't get stuck in prolonged combat, which normally Dark Angels love. That was kind of the thing you have to remember. I had to remember. It's like, oh yeah, it's like Dark Angels, they want to get charged, they want to sit there and get their +1 to hit, and it's like, oh, actually, I don't want that as this army.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the See, I think the Bolter Artisans long range or Bolter Artisans Master Artisans, Bolter Fusillades and Master Artisans is a good build if you're trying to like make a Successor Ravenwing kind of thing. Because it'll get access. It will remove your requirement to have captains, and then, or just gives you access to things even if they don't have captains. So it frees you up to do other things with your points, like take more Talon Masters and
exactly.
It'll just make all your shooting a lot more reliable. That Dreadnought build sounds like it could be tasty, because you do you can reroll a hit and your Dreadnoughts aren't dying, and your Master of the Forge Tech Marine can give them +1 to hit with Weapons of the Dark Age. Then there's something there too. I think it's cool, it's cute. I don't know if it's not game breaking. It's no Inner Circle, but it's cool. And if you really want to do it, hey man, do it. That's cool.
Yeah.
So
and there's I think there's still a nice guide in the book on how, like in this book specifically, to get let's see if I can get us a picture on how to paint your successors. Like there's just like a big double page spread. Oh yeah, so we've got at least 2 pages on one section where they've got 6 examples of successors, but they're just like single models. But I think there's there
are some storied history Dark Angel successors, like the Angels of Absolution, the Angels of Vengeance. Yeah, and there's some opportunities for some cool paint schemes. Like if you want to do a pure, like a whole bone white, like Deathwing looking army, Angels of Absolution. Yeah. They've been around in the lore for 20 plus years. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's page 26 and 27 of the Codex has a whole bunch of them. Yeah. See, just eyeballing at 14. There's 14 different successors. Then, of course, the fun part is you can do whatever you want because they're your Marines.
They're your
Make
Marines.
Them whatever you want.
They're your dudes. So, all right. Last one I want to point out is the Dark Angels have access to one of the most powerful psychic disciplines in the game. So, knowledge is power would make makes all your spells a lot more reliable. To really get the worth out of this is you're going to have to make every single one of your HQs a librarian. And to really get the worth out of it, to use a whole part of your chapter tactic for it. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You could actually, and make your a chapter librarian. It's going to cost you a little bit of points to do it, and make him give him a CP to get the warlord trait to make him better to cast and get the +1 to cast. Yeah. But that also means that you can have access to your the Interromancy discipline, and you can pull some stuff out of the regular Space Marine discipline, or even the Phobos discipline. And there's some stuff you could probably think of in the Phobos. I've played against like Ultramarines and Blood Angels doing janky stuff with Phobos that I haven't really been able to kind of wrap my head around how to duplicate with the Dark Angels. I'm sure it's out there, and we're going to talk about it at some point. It's in our long-term plans. But yeah, so as far as Successor Chapter goes, I think that's kind of what we got to say. Says if you're really interested in what I think probably the optimal one is, go back and listen to our episode from last month about what assault intercessors do, and then just consider that in the context of Whirlwind of Rage and Tactical Withdrawal, because that was my original plan for that list. Just with 2 big bricks of those guys, and it gets spicy. It gets spicy.
Yeah, and that's not all of them. Those are just the ones that we felt that were sort of like, oh, this is what I want to play with. This looks like fun. Because there's like a +1 to your leadership, and some other ones I'm like, nah, I don't want to deal with that. Although with Druhkari, maybe +1 leadership's a good thing.
It actually, you know what? That's a good point. It could be. If a lot of this leadership message shenanigan, or if there's if that's a thing that's popular in your area, it very well could be an issue. So
yeah. All right. Well, that leads us into our monthly challenge. So I got to I did play with Successor Chapter, and as I mentioned, so I managed to complete last month's challenge. And was your game that you're playing on TTS, was that your Successor Chapter then?
Heath, it was not a Successor Chapter. It was not. I wanted to get the data from the proper Dark Angels to make a report for this show, so I did not use the Successor Chapter.
Okay.
So I have failed. It's so hard to play games these days. It takes me nearly a week to play a game on Tabletop Simulator because of even playing, I guess, with someone local here in Hawaii. The internet is just so dumb and unreliable. So, but yeah, so I did not complete.
That doesn't require internet, and what about a challenge that doesn't require the internet and something you can do by yourself? How's that?
That sounds fine. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
So because one of our new releases is this new Luther book, why not? Can we? I mean, and I really seriously thought about just buying it and shipping it to you, but I don't know how fast it would get there. Although it's probably, unless you can like go down to the game store and get one. Is there an actual Warhammer place there in Hawaii?
Oh no, no. We have
okay.
We have 3 friendly local game stores. We do not have a proper GW. No, so no. I just ordered it on Kindle. As soon as you mentioned it, I went over there. I was like, boop.
Okay.
I picked it up on Kindle. So Yeah, and
Okay.
I just want to go on the record.
So how
It
about we
doesn't
try and
take
read
that long for mail to get to Hawaii.
Okay.
It's not that
Okay.
bad. Like I could order stuff on Amazon and it gets here in like 3 days. It's not like 2 hours
Okay.
like my siblings who live in Dallas. But no, it'll get here in like 3-4 days. So, but yeah,
Okay.
we're not
It's not
we're
like an
not
extra
the
month.
other side of the world. We're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, okay.
But it's not like Mars. So
Okay. Well, how about then we try and read one of these, read a Dark Angels novel between this. This
I'm
recording and
good.
The next one.
I can do that. I can do that.
And for those of you at home, Gav Thorpe, he writes a lot of the Dark Angels novels, and if you go to his website, that's literally just his name.co.uk, he has a reader's guide where he actually explains, like, here's the order to read my books on Dark Angels that I've written, like, here's the order, and it's like Purging of Caldelius, Ravenwing, Angels of Darkness, Battle Brothers, Master of Sanctity, All Must End, Except No Failure, The Unforgiven. That's the order in which he wrote those books, sort of chronologically. And then he also has some side notes saying that his book, Azrael, Hunt in the Dark, Honor the Third, Holder of the Keys, actually come before the Purging book, the Purging of Caldelius, or something like that. So those are actually there. And then he has like his Horus Heresy list too, because that's separate from the main Warhammer storyline. And then he also has a list of all of his books where Dark Angel characters appear, split between Horus Heresy and 40k. So go look up gavthorpe.co.uk if you want to join us this month.
That kind of thing is a fantastic resource. I have tried to navigate through the Horus Heresy timeline, and it requires it's a complicated flowchart.
PhD.
So yeah, I'll probably go look at that. I've read a lot of the Dark Angels books. I would probably be lying if I said I read all of them.
Right.
But that would be valuable. And the thing is, a lot of the names of them are very, very similar. I think there's actually been 2 different Dark Angels books titled Descent of Angels, and I don't know which one comes where. So, and one of the things that Gav has said on some of the interviews he's done on other podcasts was that a lot of the stuff is that they intentionally make some of the lore confusing and obfuscating because they're trying to tell it from the perspective of like a historiographer in the 41st millennium who's trying to go back, 6, 8, 10,000 years, and some of the stuff is just gone, or it's contradicting. So they're trying to. I don't know how much of that is them making excuses for not having integrated continuity. Like tightly controlled continuity, but it's cool. And they straight up said, hey, like if you go read the Horus Heresy, which is a very carefully curated series of novels, there was some of the stuff that is contradictory because they're trying to tell it from that perspective of how does one capture this enormous conflict that spans light years, sectors, and star systems with millions and billions of participants. Right? Some of the stuff is just going to be wrong, right? And so you get the opportunity to look at it from a couple different perspectives. So yeah, anytime I see an author
you have the Inquisition
like this,
redacting things,
like that didn't happen. No. Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. Good. I did not know that existed. I'll have to go take a look at that. Thanks.
No problem. All right, so we're gonna try and read a book, which I need with summer break coming up for me. I'll have plenty of time to read, although that starts in June, not May. But it'll give me something to work on, and I like to read, so it gives me motivation to read. So in our community interaction section, we only have one comment this month, and this is from a friend of mine that I've played a lot of Warhammer with, who actually has just started collecting and playing Primaris only Dark Angels. He sent me his a picture the other day. It was my buddy Sam. And he was commenting, I think, in reference to the kill team training that we were talking about in the last month's episode.
Yeah, the kill team or kill zone Pariah Nexus. Yeah.
The Pariah Nexus, and then the additional kits that came with it. And he said that the train's pretty good for Necromunda too. He's he loves the little skirmish games. So this is where like Sam and I sometimes. We don't disagree. It's just we don't play very often because Sam loves Warhammer Underworlds. Sam loves Necromunda. He's got all the war bands for Underworlds that have come out. And he's got them all painted. He's got all the decks. He's got the sleeves and the dice. He loves Necromunda. He likes having his little kill teams. He does all that. Just not enough minis for me. So I'm like, bruh, like if it was 40, 50 minis aside, I'd play. But it is not that way. So I'm not. Yeah. And it's just a personal preference.
Underworlds is a great game. I've played it once or twice, but now it's I try and keep my hobby focused. Like like playing 40K is a big enough hobby that I don't have time to split off into. And there's times in my life when that has happened. I end up getting less done with both. so yeah. No, well, welcome to the hobby, and thanks for your input.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Sam. But Sam, he's a good artist. He's got a beautiful sisters army. It's beautiful. And then the terrain, Necromunda terrain is cool. That's what I love about some of these big box games. Like, I've never played Warcry, probably don't plan on it. I love the terrain in that box.
Yeah, it is really good terrain. It is really good. There's a lot of great models from that set too. So
yeah,
GW just kills it. Every time they release a plastic model, they just kill it. It's all like Bellicor is coming out this next week. Like holy god, like wow, like I don't play like wow. Anyway,
actually, excuse me. I think you mean there's a new Ultramarines Lieutenant model.
There's a new Primaris Ultramarine Lieutenant model coming out. So yeah. All right.
At the feet of Bellicor.
At the feet of Bellicor. So.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this month's episode of The Path to Redemption, the Warhammer 40,000 Dark Angels podcast. Our next episode will be out in May. Please subscribe, like, and comment below if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on your preferred podcasting service, sign up there. If there's a way to subscribe through there or like the content, please do that there as well. We would really, really appreciate that. So until next time, I'm Bailey from Dankless Wargaming.
Hey, and this is Heath with Team Table War Hawaii.
Stay loyal, Angels.